Welcome back to JuicedCast, the number one podcast for resellers, a podcast made for resellers by resellers. Today, in episode 4, I'm joined by my co-host, Saucyy Mango. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm happy to be back for our fourth episode now. We've come pretty far now. We've had a good amount of listeners that have come along our way now and who've enjoyed what we've had to bring to you guys. I'm excited to dive into this topic today. For those of you that have been following our content lately, we started off with, the sneaker industry and what that sort of holds, and then we jumped to Bitcoin and NFTs and so on, and some market trends that were going on. And today we're going to look into botting, because botting is a very, very influential thing in our industry, and it is really important. Some resellers, I think the question you guys will be all asking for like resellers is, how do you attain product, right? And yes, a lot of it falls in line with connections and so on, but botting plays a really crucial role. So yeah, I want to start with that. DTX, do you want to sort of let our listeners know, what are bots and why are they important, or why are they important to you as a reseller?
Yeah. So, basically, for resellers, we try to cop, or purchase sneakers for retail, right? So, for example, a Air Jordan 1 may resell for $400, but in reality, it's only $170, right? Retail plus tax plus ship. So a sneaker bot basically helps you attain that shoe from foot sites or Shopify sites or smaller boutique stores that upload it on their website for the retail cost, right? So a sneaker bot is basically a software that is like programmed to auto check out the product for you, and just basically automate the entire process.
Mhm.
And it can also make like multiple purchases um with like one software. So for example, you're able to cop 50 Jordan 1s with one software if you correctly jig your addresses, like kind of change them around, um and kind of like use proxies, which kind of like spoofs your location. So it's basically, if it takes a little bit of work and a little bit of understanding, but once you kind of get the hang of it, it's really simple to use, and it's basically the easiest way to cop shoes for retail and make money.
Yeah, absolutely. We were fortunate enough to have, for our second episode, I mean, we label it as an episode, but it was more so a Q&A. And we had Jalen on there, and he brought to us sort of, the inside of like raffle bots and stuff like that. Do you want to sort of give our listeners an idea of like what's the difference between, let's say, sneaker bots for like AIO bots, right, which run like
Yep.
foot sites and so on, versus raffle bots? Like what sites do like most AIO bots cover?
Yeah, so most AL bots will cover foot sites, right? And that's like the most generic site. Foot sites are East Bay, Foot Locker, Champs, Foot Action, and basically those are going to be your sites that have the highest stock on the biggest releases. A bot like Osur's Raffle Bot that Jalen owns is one that will mass enter your Gmails or catch-alls into boutique stores raffles. So 99% of the time, a boutique store won't upload the shoes onto their site due to many reasons, one of which may be a low stock. And what they'll do is that they'll raffle the pairs. Osur's Raffle Bot will put like thousands of entries of yours into that raffle, so your odds are way higher to end up copying that shoe. So the difference between an AIO bot and a raffle bot is an AIO bot, you're like competing in live time with like thousands of other people to buy a shoe. When with raffle botting, you have like 2 days to enter all your entries to cop a shoe. Um, Ultimately, AIO botting takes a little bit more skill, and raffle botting is 100% luck.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that makes sense. And in terms of like sites, right? Like you talked a little bit about different foot sites, but the thing is, they also cover, Shopify, right? Mesh, Off White, Easy Supply,
Yeah,
even Supreme, right? And
yeah.
there's very very few bots out there that do Nike sneakers, but it is
Like
possible,
sneakers
right?
work, yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
and
what I was gonna ask you actually, sorry to cut you off, but do you recommend like botting for the average person out there? Like I know that botting, right, for ourselves, there's a lot of expenses that go into it, right? And do you think it is even worth considering just to simply acquire personals?
so a lot of people DM me on Instagram and Discord asking, okay, I'm a normal person. I work a 9 to 5, but I'm a huge sneakerhead, and I want to get
Mhm.
into botting because I'm tired of paying $400 for Jordan ones. No, I always tell them you have to have the time, you have to have the resources, you have to have the knowledge. The knowledge and resources is easy to get. You can join a cook group and gain that pretty easily.
Mhm.
Now, with the time is the big thing, right? You have to be up at all the drops. You have to set up. If you're not willing to put in the time and the financial investment, botting isn't worth it. I always recommend to people, you have one of two options: find a good botter and fill out their ACO, or find a good cook group that has good ACO runners like Juiced and join through that. So I think those are the two ways that sneakerheads can cop their stuff for retail. Other than that, no, I do not recommend the average person to uh to start sneaker body.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think, so for those of you listening right now, I think you need to pay close attention to this. And the biggest thing to consider for botting, whether you've just started or you're looking to get into botting in the future, really, really take into account the expenses. And is it really necessary? Now, I'm gonna sort of dive into what it costs to run your average bot, right? So the first thing are proxies, right? For those of you that don't know, um, proxies basically they run through like an IP, right? And an IP is a number. It defines your internet, your computer's access to the internet. And this means that when you're surfing the internet and you click onto sites, they can see your IP, right? So proxies are essentially different IP addresses. And they're important because you can't run all your tasks trying to check out from a site all on the same IP address. This will lead to bans, perma queues, and so on. So many different sort of issues that you will have if you don't run with proxies and you're just running on your local. So what types of proxies are there? There's obviously residentials and there's DCs and DCs ISPs. So how are they different? Residentials are more expensive, right? And they're a little slower, but they have a less chance of being banned. They run on a data plan. And what this means is, you know, we carry cell phones in our pockets every day and we have a phone bill to pay every month and it runs on data. So in the same sense, residentials follow that same sort of concept, right? What's cool about residentials is you can generate several proxies. You have like unlimited amount of proxies that you can generate. And the more proxies you have, the more tasks you can run. But the thing is, when you're running residentials, you really have to pay attention to how much data you're using, right? Because you could burn through all your data in one drop. So less tasks, less data usage, more tasks, more chance of potentially checking out on a foot site. For data centers, they're a little cheaper um, and they're faster, but they get easily banned. But what's really cool about these proxies is they're unlimited data, right? So you own a list for about a month, and you can run them as many times as you want, as long as they don't get banned. And then you obviously have ISPs, which are a little similar, and they're sort of like the middle ground of residentials and DCs, where they are unlimited data, and they're a little more cleaner, which means you're a little safer running ISPs. DTX, did you want to let them know sort of your experience with proxies and how you go about getting proxies from drop to drop?
Yeah, so quick background on residential proxies. Residential proxies come from ISPs, and their IP address is provided by the internet service providers, and they're assigned to homes, right? So that's why there's such a low block rate, and there's a high, like, there's a higher chance of you getting proxies banned on other options. For me, I personally use residentials on mostly everything. I buy bulk resis. That is just the way that I usually like operate when it comes to botting. I'll buy like 20 gigs at a time because the worst possible thing that could happen to me is I run out of data mid drop, right? That's just a nightmare. So like right now I have um multiple like proxy providers. I don't put all my eggs in one basket, and around right now I have like 40 gigabytes collectively. And I think it's the best thing for you to just try out different providers, find what works, because you might find something that worked last month, but it's not going to work this month. So it's all about
Mhm.
just adapting and changing your game plan. And I treat it very similar to playing sport. I treat botting the same way. It's like we're going to come in with an initial game plan, but it may be going good in the first quarter, but by the time the fourth quarter comes around, it's time to change the game plan and kind of figure out better ways so eventually you can win or hit a clip, right? So is that kind of how you treat it as well, or like?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think, as we progress through this episode, I'll get into what I want to get into later, and we'll discuss this both DTX and I is some advice that we can give you guys and some takeaways from our experience as botters. Before we get into that, I want to talk about servers, right? So, what are servers? Why are they important, right? So, to really make it really simplified, servers are essentially like computers hosted in a data center, right? It's like a PC that you can access remotely, log into from anywhere. And these are used to run bots. Now, some people find servers beneficial, some people don't. I'm going to really talk about, I guess, why I find them personally beneficial and how they can help you in terms of your sneaker success. The first thing is simply like speed, right? The reality is when you're sitting at home, the average person doesn't have very, very fast internet, very, very fast speeds, especially depending on where you are, right?
Yeah.
The average person has like 300 megabytes in terms of speed. And the thing is, when you're using a server, you can get upwards of like 900, which is crazy. And that's like 3 times as fast as what you're running on your local internet and NPC, right?
Yeah.
The next sort of thing is running multiple copies, right? When you have several bots, right? And regardless of how your specs are set up for your computer, right? We all have a certain amount of budget that we can allocate towards building our own PC or whatever it may be. Even if you're running on a Mac, we can only run so much on our computer. So servers allow us to run multiple copies on different servers and so on, right? And you can minimize the cost of, let's say you're first starting off, you don't want to invest in really like a zooped up PC, right? So using a server is a lot more cheaper in that respect. And another thing is, if you look at some of the biggest bots in our industry, a lot of them run Windows only compatible through Windows. So you need a server to run those, right? And lastly, servers, a lot of them are closer to where the sites are located, right? So if you're running from, the EU and UK, or, for myself, I'm a Canadian, right? So this is more beneficial as it's faster to the line, to checking out, and so on. And then we step away from servers. What else do we have that, is costly in botting? We have stuff like managing our captchas, right? What are captchas? Well, the captchas are essentially like, let's say you're on a website and the website doesn't trust you. They'll ask you to sort of solve this, crazy puzzle, like find the traffic lights, select all the boxes that have a taxi on it. Captchas, those are what captchas are. And when you're botting in, let's say, Shopify, those things play a really, really, or Supreme as well. Those captchas play a really pivotal role in terms of whether you're able to check out something within a couple seconds, right? Most people who have really, really been botting for a long time, they've farmed a lot of their Gmails. They've developed a lot of one clicks in their arsenal that they can use. And what one clicks is essentially when you click that sort of checkbox to solve a captcha, if your Gmail is trusted enough, you won't even have to solve anything, and you'll automatically be processed to sort of the next step of payment. Most bots now these days, when you're running foot sites, they usually try to rotate proxies, right? That way, you just keep changing the proxy until you get through. It's kind of like a bypass. That's sort of the idea of all those expenses that you have to consider, right? For captchas, you have to consider like potentially purchasing some Gmails or purchasing investing in monthly tools that help farm your Gmails to keep them up to date and keep a good V3 score and so on. I think what I want to get into now is with you, DTX, what happens when you take L's as a botter, right? How do you bounce back? Can you overcome, sometimes as botters, we spend a lot of money into a drop and we might not come out with a W. So how do you overcome sitting in sort of that deficit for that short amount of time with all these operational costs?
So for me, it's just mentality. Um, I think that you always have to like go in with a positive mentality, knowing like for me, I always go in saying, all right, I'm gonna hit like 30 pairs or I'm gonna hit this amount of pairs. And for the longest time until it's kind of hard for me to say because it's like there was so many drops in I'd say November till December, like that 2 months where I probably hit 0 pairs. Easy breads were one of them. Um, I had 0 pairs of that, but then when you go to pairs like silver toes, that was most recent. I was able to hit 20 plus, 15 plus of those. I was able to hit 40 cool grade threes. I was able to hit 40 of the most recent threes. So it's kind of just consistency, like there's a quote that I kind of apply to botting, and it's errors are the gates to discovery, right? So every time that you catch an L or like you put so much money into botting and you end up like losing, just kind of see what you did wrong, see how you can like bounce back from it. For me, with the easy breads, I realized I was using not so good proxies. I realized that the bots I was using weren't so good. I rented 3 bots. I didn't hit anything. It's actually really sad. And I realized I wasn't good at easy supply. So something I did was I watched a few live cops on easy supply, and I realized, okay, this bot does really good on easy supply. These proxies do really good on easy supply. Came back with another game plan, right? I actually have I have a notepad that I write all these things down for botting, and I think that going back to the quote that I said was errors are the gates to discovery. I think that because of how many L's I've taken and because of how many errors I've made, I've learned the correct way to kind of bot, and now I'm able to hit bigger clips on foot sites and just on sites in general. I can't tell you the last time that I at least didn't get a card decline on a drop. At least didn't like get an error or something. I really can't tell you the last time that I took a complete L on a drop. You know what I mean? So I think it's just yeah, I actually could tell you it was the Kobe Grinches, right? And that was in
I
2020.
remember that one. Yeah,
Yeah, that's super low stock. But yeah, I think it's just all about how you keep that positive mentality. It doesn't matter how many L's you take. It doesn't matter if you take 5 L's in a row. It's so easy. It's so easy to quit. It really doesn't matter how much you fall. It matters about like how high you're gonna bounce back. So Saucy, like, what about you? Like, I know you have to understand every single botter takes L's. We go on Twitter, we go on YouTube, we see all these botters getting like 200 clips, 300 clips. All these botters got L's too. I guarantee you, every single person that bots has had a drop where they hit 0 pairs. I promise you, it's just how it is. And there, there there's kind of like a fine line between being like losing at something and winning. And I think that every single person that is winning in botting um is doing so because they failed so many times.
I agree. You definitely have to start somewhere. I think the best advice, or I guess like way I could negate that sort of deficit is looking towards finding ways to break even, right? I think that was very, very important. That took me a while to figure out, right? You mentioned this idea of, when you're first starting, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket and try to bot everything yourself, right? You also got to look towards other experienced botters to acquire products and so on. And so what are ways we can break even, right? And the first thing is ACOs, right? You can try running ACOs for people and they would appreciate that. It really depends on how much you're charging. Maybe try to lower your fees to entice more people to, run ACO with you. And, the more and more success you find through ACOs and, the pay after service fees that you get, the more and more people you'll have returning to you. And that's a good way to sort of, if you check out a couple pairs on ACO and you get that fee, that service fee from your clients, that could go towards the proxies that you bought, right? Another thing is, I know this is not compatible for every bot, but some bots offer the opportunity for their users to rent out their bots, right? That's another way of breaking even, making sure that you cover those monthly costs. And the thing is, as a botter, is we don't always go for necessarily every drop. Yes, it's very important to go for every drop to learn and improve and so on. But there'll be some days where you either might be low on capital, or you just don't feel like going for that drop, or it's not worth it for you. But the chances are is other people will be. So rent it out to those people. Those people will be willing to take your bot for a day or however long it might be, right? And then another thing is, in regards to proxies, when it comes to like DC ISPs, right? Those come in packs of like 25, 50, 100, however many you're buying. And that is a big sort of cost to incur. The thing is, you'll notice with a lot of these providers, first of all, they have a lot of discount codes, right? You really have to join the Discord servers, check announcements, keep an eye on sort of, group buys or partnerships your cook group will have. Juiced.io has phenomenal partnerships with a lot of good proxy providers, and they'll give you discount codes. But the thing is also, the more and more you spend with proxies, right? The more proxies you buy. I'm not talking in terms of residentials, but I'm talking in terms of like DC ISPs. The more and more you spend, the cheaper it is, right? So maybe considering something as like investing in subnets, right? Like private subnets, clean private ISP subnets. That way you can also split it with other people, and that will negate sort of the crazy cost. And then whatever you have left over, let's say you don't want to use the whole subnet, and you and the person you're splitting it with don't need all those ISPs, you can sell the rest of those ISPs. You don't need to use the whole pack, right? But DTX, what are some key takeaways or advice you can pass on to those of you that are listening right now who want to get into botting or have just started?
Kind of going back to what I just said earlier about having a good mentality. You have to have that winner's mentality. I don't think if you don't have that, you're not going to succeed. Um, and I also just think having access to the best of the best, which Juice provides. They provide like weekly bot rentals. I don't know if you mentioned that, but they provide that, which basically for a full week you get access to some of the top bots in the sneaker industry, which not a lot of groups do. So I think that's really cool for Juice to do. Um, and it kind of gets you familiar with what the bots like. So like one of the bots that they have is Polaris. So like before you want to buy the spot, you kind of want to like maybe try it out a little bit. You can definitely do that. Juiced also has some really good group buys with bots like TSB, which is like the leading like the industry standard for sneaker bot. Um, they also have group buys with AI Emoji, which is like a bot that absolutely cooks foot sites. So I think that's really cool. They're definitely giving opportunities to like anyone, whether you're a beginner or you're a pro. Um, it's really just for anyone that wants to, either get better in botting or start botting. And kind of to answer your question of what advice do I have for any beginner botters, just go in with a good mentality and be willing to learn every second you get. Whenever I started botting, I just like DM random people I saw on Discord and be like, if you don't mind, can I take like 5 minutes out your day and ask you some questions? And then either they'd be like, no, sorry, or they'd be like, yes, yeah, for sure, you can ask me. And something I've been doing recently, and I haven't had a chance to do it that much in the past week or so, but I'm in a few bot servers, and I say if anyone has any questions, I'll hop on a VC with you for like a voice chat with you for like 5 minutes. Just like shoot questions at me, and I can help you out, help you curate the perfect setup. And you know, um, it's kind of cool because this one person I did that with 2 months ago he's doing the same thing, but he's helping other people now because he's finally gotten the hang of it, and he's like starting to hit clips. So I think if we can just keep the sneaker botting industry positive and just give the helping hand, I think that like everyone's gonna be like everyone wants to help everyone. Like at the end of the day, it's really not that competitive, um, and I just think that we can all hit clips. You know what I mean, Saucy?
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned, this idea of being in these bot servers and like
Yeah.
hopping on voice with people, right? I think that's a really cool, interesting thing. Our first episode, for those of you returning to our fourth episode, you might have heard that we talked a little bit about the reselling industry, right? And the importance of budgeting and the importance of connections. And that right there speaks to connections, right? When I first started, the one thing I would use to my advantage was the success channels, right? Success channels. Check out, who's really doing well with these bots, who's finding success with them, and then, message them personally on Discord and ask them, what did you do this drop? How was your setup? Even on Twitter, right? A lot of these bot companies, proxy companies, even server companies, they promote a lot of their success, right? So that they can show, the success they've had with their clients. And you'll see people posting on Twitter what they've done. And you can so much as just message them and ask them, how'd it go? What did you do? What am I doing wrong? And they'll be able to help you out. There is a lot of positivity out there, you mentioned, which is really important. And we are part of a very specific community, and we all are trying to attain the same thing, right? We all have the same goal in mind. So keeping that positivity is really important. I mentioned budgeting, right, in the first episode, and we talked about budgeting in terms of your expenses for like shoes or whatever products you have coming in and out or whatever it may be. But budgeting really, really is important when it comes to botting, and tracking your expenses. And you can do that on Scout. Scout's a really cool sort of way of tracking your expenses, or even if you want to go like traditional on spreadsheets, that works too. I think another piece of advice that I'd like to share with you guys is the importance of proxies, right? I talked a little bit about proxies earlier today. But the thing is, bots all sort of have the same role, right? They all have the same purpose, to check out an item for you. But the thing is, what separates a really good botter, or I guess like someone who finds a lot of success in drops, is their proxies, because bots all do, for the most part, the same thing. They might have better devs when it comes to one or another, but proxies are usually what makes or breaks your success. So, DTX mentioned go into every drop with a range of providers. That is very, very important. And what you can take away from that is also not every drop are you going to have the same success with the same providers. You have to be able to adjust, and you have to be able to look back and see what worked for you, what didn't work for you, and apply that as you move forward. And, I think a quote that I like to sort of keep in mind is this idea of, when it comes to botting, everyone has their own budget, yes, but you have to be willing to spend money in order to make money, right? And, you said you watch live cops, right, TTX? I think, screen recording your drops
Yeah.
and then watching them over is really important too,
I
right?
watch live cops. Yeah, ones I watch ones that are ones where like the botters won't hit like insanely huge clips, because like I don't have access to that many profiles. I usually like to watch live cops with people that are kind of in the same situation as me. I've like I'm growing my profiles now. I bet for the longest time I only had like 15.
Mm-hmm.
Now right now I have like 10 times that, but like at that, for the longest time I only had 15. And I think when you have that, you kind of want to watch people that are similar to the situation you're in, because
Mm-hmm.
if you're going to watch these big bodies that are hitting 200 clips, it's not going to really be beneficial to you, because it's like, well, I don't have the same resources this guy does. I don't
Yeah.
have like 9 bots and all that. Try to find people that do live cops that don't have access to like 9 bots, or you're kind of in the same situation as you. Like I stated before, if you have one bot and like um enough capital, drop money on like 4 proxy providers. Watch someone that has one bot and only used 4 to 5 proxy providers. I think that's the best way you're gonna learn. If you're watching for entertainment, yeah, then go watch other dudes, but other than that, I don't recommend them for learning purposes.
Yeah, they're really not a good representation of, where you will be, right? And, the last couple things I want to mention in regards to some key takeaways that you can get from this podcast today is, take advantage of bot support, take advantage of cook groups, right? Juiced.io, phenomenal cook group. They have done everything in their power to make sure that they have designed a system which helps anyone from all levels, beginner, advanced, intermediate, whatever it may be. They provide release guides. They provide stock numbers for each size. That's another thing that's really important, is stock numbers, right? every drop, we have different stock numbers for each size. Some sizes have more, some sizes have less, right? If you want to increase your chances, you got to go for, a size that, let's say, has more stock. But yeah, Juiced.io also provides like site lists and stuff like that, so that you make sure that what's releasing where and at what time. And then, last but not least is renting. Not renting out, but renting for yourself. I wish I knew this, at the beginning. I mean, I did rent at the start, but I didn't really use it to my advantage. And what I mean by that is rent as many bots as you can at the start, which works with your budget. And the reason for that is, get some advice on the bots that you're renting with, familiarize yourself with them, get a feel for every software available in the market before you actually invest in one for yourself for the long term, right? Because you don't want to, just look at success channels and look at whatever's trending in the sneaker botting market right now and then just hop onto it and say, I'm going to buy it right now. Because chances are you won't be familiar with the software. You won't know how to run it. You never ran with it before, and it could flop later on, right? You really want to make sure that you've invested in something that has longevity, something that has shown consistent success, and something that you think, you have actually found success with, right? A good way to, get a feel for that is through Juiced.io as well. They offer free weekly rentals, as DTX mentioned, right? And you can get some high-end bots too there. Like, Cyber's really good bot, has been in this industry for a long time. And imagine what it's like to use a bot like that, right? Like if you hop on Bot Broker and you look at the prices for those bots, you're going, I'm never going to invest that much money in a bot, but at least you get to try it out,
Yeah,
see what you think. And if you can, make some good returns off just that rental, maybe, you could exponentially grow your capital and then reinvest into a software, right?
exactly. Bots
Learn
like
what sites you're
Cyber.
good at and what needs improvement, as I mentioned. But yeah, go ahead, DTX.
Yeah, I was saying like bots like Cyber, like even if you have that kind of capital, um, I would say like bots like that they're good investments. Like Cyber just hit $8,000 today, at the time that we're
Wow.
recording this, which is
Yeah.
absolutely crazy, because I've seen it at way lower prices. Whenever I started botting, Soul was at like $200 or something like
Yeah.
that. And now just to see like bots can be great investments as well. So if you have the capital to like kind of invest in a few bots, I'd recommend like going all out and like maybe buying a few copies. Like obviously like don't spend more than like 20% of your capital on bots to invest in. But I'm just giving that as a suggestion if you have a lot of capital. And kind of to like uh wrap it up, this podcast was basically an intro to botting, so you could get kind of a general understanding on how these things work. And we'd obviously like love to hear some feedback from you guys uh in the comment sections on Instagram, YouTube, or DM us on Discord or Twitter if you're listening on Spotify. Our Twitters will be linked in the description below on whatever platform you're watching on. And let us know if you like this episode, because we want to get more content out about botting, and we want to kind of go more into more detail and hopefully take your skills to the next level. If you're getting 5 clips right now, we want to help you get to 50 clips or 100 clip. And we can, kind of dive into topics about like task creations and different sites and building profiles. And I kind of like grazed the surface of jigging and all that. But we talked about like today proxies, bots, and server creation, which is super important in botting. And we just want to kind of get your feedback and know if this is something else you want to know about, or we should kind of switch it up. Saucyy, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think, you put it pretty clear for everyone. I think today we wanted to get a feel for sort of our listeners and their understanding of botting, and hopefully bring some useful information to you guys. I think in the upcoming episodes that we make, we want to bring some more content in regards to botting, and hopefully help improve your skills. If this is something you're interested in, please let us know, and we'll continue to make some more content and bring some useful information to you guys.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, that about wraps it up. Until next time, guys. Peace.